Hey! Been trying to meet you. And we'll be talking about Super Mario Brothers for the NES. Okay, let's not keep seeing that before I get copyrighted. But yeah, today we're just talking about Super Mario Brothers, just how it basically lives up to this very day, even after almost 40 years later. Yeah, my dad is pretty much gonna be close to being a boomer at this point. Okay, with that being said, with Super Mario Brothers, there is maybe not actually not gonna be too much to say about this game. You know, generally you're not gonna get too much of a sort of content sort of results with what this game has to offer, but more into the sense where you have like the amount of levels you play, the sort of obstacles continually, and just there's actually really good things to talk about with this game, which is I think is important to kind of mention with that. Yeah, so that being said, because let me see where to start from here. Let's see, 1985, this game released in North America, huge success. After, I don't know if it was immediate or a slow success at that point, but in general though, Super Mario Brothers definitely really made the pace to be able to basically reintroduce video games into North America. I mean, for a lot of gamers who probably know, the E.T. game basically infamously caused the video game crash to happen for at least a couple of years, and then the Super Mario Brothers, it was definitely a huge rejuvenation and refreshment with the idea of how very well made this game could be. Like, this is truly just the idea of, it's just the true idea of just like, I mean, like I said, just like how much like a video game can just do by not just pressing buttons, pretty much. Because the Super Mario Brothers, it's more about the idea with just, just the really good level designs that are genuine to the idea of how it teaches you to play the game. I mean, cool facts, Shigeru Miyamoto, he mentioned in an interview with the idea where like, oh yeah, like in the very first level of Super Mario Brothers, like we have that Goomba placed there for a reason where like, okay, if you hit it, you obviously know obviously you'll know it's an enemy, because if you hit it, you'll just die, but you won't completely reset, because obviously that was just like a 5-second loss or something. But you know that you can just jump on it to kill it and stuff. And then also we have the question mark blocks where you have to like, where you could just check them and see, yeah, you could get golden coins from them, but you could also get power-ups like the mushrooms, and then eventually a fire flower later on, just stuff like that. And it's like, dude, like there was this, like this game was just planned it out with the idea with, where rather than, doing some sort of like tutorial sort of thing, or even back then to trying to mention all of that in the manual, like the idea where they were able to just cleverly, I mean, this is 1985 we're talking about. Was I saying 1984? Yeah, but this is 1985 we're talking about, where like video games didn't really have that way of like quick introduction like that. I mean, maybe, but if I'm missing some, but that's like generally just one of the things that really stands out, especially where you continually play the game, where the game progressively gets harder in a pretty good paceable way, I would say, because playing this game with all the levels, like there's definitely that sort of sense where like really like there is like a cruelty sense of the level designs like later on in the game, but at the same time it's that kind of progression of being able to and there is that genuine progression of just like getting better at the game, which yeah, like I said, generally is a cliche to say that like, oh yeah, you play a game for a long time and you play further in the levels, you get good at it, whatever. But I generally keep saying, I guess to really phrase with all I'm trying to say here, and I might be getting a little sidetracked here, but I just want to say that I think I just see Super Mario Brothers as the epitome of just a true first class, I just see this as like a true first modern sort of game. I mean, sure, maybe that would have truly happened like around like the 90s pretty much, but I think this is truly where you see the idea where, like I said, like the video game isn't just, just your casual arcade sort of game, but just a full-on experience. Like, oh, I found the warped levels, I found like the warp zones, or I found like the cloud levels, or stuff like that. So, like, there's just like the general, or like especially where it's like, oh, I found this random 1-up block in World 1, Level 1, like so, or I just found the I found a way to exploit the game for infinite 1-up by using the turtle in World 3 Level 1. Like, those sort of reasons, I mean, like I said, 1985. Really cool they did all of those sort of stuff. I mean, the infinite 1-up trick, obviously not obvious, but come on, son. That's like a cool thing to notice with the idea where there wasn't a Super Mario Brothers back then when they were making Super Mario Brothers, and they were like, Nintendo really was just like ahead of the time when it came to making that, especially when you got into games like The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, it's just like a whole library of their games, and they still just continually just do a really great job with doing those like these days, especially with like recent entries like, you know, like the recent Zelda games, Mario Odyssey, etc, etc. And yeah, I just see this like Super Mario Brothers as both like a huge landmark into gaming, like definitely just a huge sort of, well, I want to say landmark for history in general, just because like gaming in general just changed so much when it came to the trends, when it came to like when the internet came around and stuff like that. Like really, like we wouldn't really have too much of a gaming sort of experience without Super Mario Brothers. I mean, maybe for some of us that might not matter, but you gotta understand just at the same time, like how you would need to understand like what the golden spike in America meant for like all the way back then for connecting with having the Pacific Railroad, like so. And so yeah, and for other things I could generally say about the game, like for being able to play the game, would I really recommend it? I mean, I definitely would recommend it if you're, well, number one, if you're into retro games, but also just to be able to just, you know, generally try out, you know, basically the first Mario game pretty much, because obviously this Red Plumber guy is just that iconic of a sort of thing. The controls are definitely I mean, okay, maybe not control wise, but this game will definitely be like a little bit more punishable compared to the preceding Mario games after this one for some sorts, and definitely stuff like the controls we'll have to get used to. But you know, even the controls I'll mention, there's a fun flow when it comes to the controls, how it's almost like the game forces you, in some ways this game feels a lot of fun to play fast, like to have like good acceleration with the games as you continue to move. I mean, people like freaking speedrun this game as much as like maybe you know, Super Mario 64, for crying out loud. Like it's actually generally a really fun game, despite maybe being frustrating at some parts on the first playthrough, like how I did. But maybe I was terrible, I don't know. But I'm not gonna give myself that sort of commentary. But yeah, 8 minutes, boom, done.